Welcome to the Evangelistic House of God podcast.
Unscripted discussions on social issues from a Christian's perspective.
Hello, welcome to the Evangelistic House of God podcast. I am Pastor Rod Harris, joined by Esther Smith.
Hello, everyone.
And Pastor Steve Harris, and we welcome you to our podcast today. Hope things are going well for you today. Hope life is doing exactly what you need it to do, and that your prayers are being answered by our Father and Savior in heaven.
Yes.
Esther,
Yes.
what's going on with you?
I'm doing good. So, guys, we talked about my workout regimen and trying to lose weight and stuff, and I've been doing really good.
I'm glad.
I lost 5 pounds.
All right, that's bad. It's only been, about a month, right?
Yep. And so that's really good for me, especially because I wasn't able to get out as much as I wanted to, but I have started incorporating some kind of exercises at home, and I'm feeling good about life. So 5 pounds is better than nothing.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Absolutely.
So I feel good. I feel really good.
Especially, I think it was like a week ago, your husband came home and had
Yes.
y'all for us to go out every night.
He back on his 4 day.
Okay, so whenever he get off his 4 days, y'all, this is when you got to really pray for
me. Yeah.
Because her husband worked 4 days on and 4 days off. And on his 4 days off, he likes to celebrate. So.
Yes.
I think I would celebrate too.
Yeah. 12 hours.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How you doing, Pastor Steve?
Oh, I'm good. I just came off a business trip, so really glad to. I took the wife with me, so we were able to get away.
Oh, wow.
Get time away from the kids.
That's always nice.
It's good. I mean, I don't want to act like I don't love my kids, because I do, but it's good to be able to get away.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, being able to travel with somebody that you love like that is a good opportunity to recharge your batteries.
Yes.
Yep.
Rekindle the relationship. I was trying to say relationship and romance at the same time. Because both are equally important.
Romantic.
Right.
Right.
Because they're equally important in our lives.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to do that sometimes.
Yeah,
I know when I
absolutely.
take my wife out of town with me on travel for work, it just make work easy.
Yeah. I usually like to come too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I remember.
Me and your wife get together, we start shopping, we start
That's
having
the bad
fun.
part about it.
You know? I love me. I love Joy too. Yeah, you guys got some really good wives.
Thank you, Jesus. The Lord is good.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. All the time.
Because I hear the complaints from other men, and I just don't share them. And I am so glad that I
Yeah.
have to.
Me too.
We don't live that type of
That's
life,
true.
you know?
True.
Yeah.
True. I mean, I even hear people in church complaining about their relationships, and
No, but that's not my. It's not my.
that is not my testimony.
Yeah.
Mine
Me
is one of
either.
greatness.
Yeah.
I do thank God.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about Black History Month. This is February,
Yes.
and we see Black History Month is trying to really take a new stance, from what I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I'm always plugged into the Black socially connected channels.
That's
so
true.
I hear that kind of stuff all along. And then there's some channels and some media outlets like, do you guys listen to Urban View?
No.
Joe Madison,
No.
the Black Eagle.
I'm gonna
That's
have
a
to
good
start.
show.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on Sirius XM.
I've heard it with you.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
I
wonder.
don't have it.
Okay, I don't have Sirius.
It's a really good show, and I'm trying to put a plug in. He didn't pay me for this. He don't know me. I never even called into the show, but I do listen to it on my way to work. And he always does a Black History segment at the beginning of every hour.
Oh, I love that.
And so,
Okay.
and he talks about kind of unsung heroes. He's not talking about the same, the lady, Crispus Attucks and, George Carver. And I mean, those are the kind of things that we learned in textbooks as kids. It's
Right.
basically the only thing they would ever tell us about our history.
Right.
Right.
It was what we learned in junior high and elementary school.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what do you guys think about Black History Month? Is it really going in the right direction? Is it a necessary tool? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I have some issues with Black History Month.
Okay, do
because
tell.
I don't feel as though we should have a Black History Month.
Okay.
I think that I remember a lot earlier, when I was a lot younger, and we had I remember going through it in school, and it was like, man, someone pointed out that it was the shortest month of the year, the coldest month of the year.
Yes.
It's dead in the winter, and it's like, okay, so then we sit around and we talk about, some of the, the heroes, the Black heroes for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and then the rest of the year, what happens? Now I'm living this other history.
Right.
Black history is American history, and I don't understand why we need to be singled out just one day a month to celebrate our history as though it's separate from the rest of the American history. American history involves black people.
Right.
Why is ours singled out as a small slice of the pie for 1 month, but then I have to learn about the rest of the white history,
Right.
the other 11 months of the year. And it
Right.
just, I think it sets the wrong mindset, the wrong stigma about us. And, it's like, okay, well, Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King, great people. Okay, you celebrate them and you write a little school report, with your kid, and that's the end of it. It's like, hey, there's got to be a lot more to our history than that. We have been here from the beginning of the establishment of this nation. Why is it now that we can only celebrate us in 1 month?
So I agree with you that to a degree, I agree that we need to celebrate Black history more than just February.
Yeah.
The fear that, and I'm going to just tell you from my perspective, the fear I have is that if you take it away from February, then we will be forgotten totally. And what is to guarantee us that if we stop celebrating that little short 28 days of February, that we'll be able to talk about or at least even tell our children who even Harriet Tubman and Dr. King was? I mean, because if we let the history books and the school systems have their way with it, they will wipe us out of the history books.
I understand that. The thing I'm saying is what should be. Okay. We have Black history. That's what we do. We've carved out this little niche for Black people. But the way it should be is we should be written in with American history. Period. It should be that all of our efforts, whether they're celebrated or things that were negative, they should all be a part of American history. That's what I'm saying. I understand the politics of it and how people, they have this agenda or whatever to keep Black people from, understanding who they are to becoming who they should be and having that understanding of where you came from and all of that. I get that. I do understand it. But I still say what should be is that we should be celebrated, or our history should be written right along with all of the other races that has been in this country and have contributed to this country.
So I'm with both of you guys. I'm in the middle. I agree that if we don't have a Black History Month, that my fear is that there will not be any celebration of Black history at all. Also, though, I do have a problem with Black History Month. And my problem with it is the insensitivity when taught, especially like our children go to predominantly white schools. And I had to have the same conversation with a teacher just a couple of weeks ago because his way of teaching Black History Month was to show a KKK video in class.
How's that Black history?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I'm like, so my son comes home and he's like, yeah, we had to watch this KKK video. They had all of these racial slurs and it was just so embarrassing, and I just felt bold, and everybody, kept looking back at me and the two other Black kids that's in the class. There's only 3 of them in the class. And
that's not Black History Month,
right?
That's celebrating white supremacy.
Exactly.
At their worst.
And when I pointed that out to the teacher, he said, "Well, no. What I'm doing is I'm teaching, tolerance and inclusion and showing how ugly it is." I said, "But you're not showing a Black Panther video. You get you get what I'm saying? That's not you're going to show half of it. You're going to show, and you get and that's my problem with it. Is like, why is it that when you teach about the Black history, you have to show about how white people hate Black people and about how we tolerate y'all? And it's like,
exactly. You shouldn't be tolerated.
Wait a minute. What do you mean you teach tolerance? That don't even sound. We're all people,
right?
You know what I'm saying? So my problem with it is that the people that are teaching the Black history, they seem to have a misconception of what Black history should be taught as well.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Is it really a misconception of what they should be teaching in class and how to teach Black history to our children? Or is it an effort in order to keep them from understanding and really knowing what their true history is about Black history.
But it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I mean, it's just a small area. I mean, you get these people. They don't. If it was all written together, it would be harder to do that kind of thing.
I
think that there's a.
So I get where you're going. I guess, how do you get it to that point though? Because right now, no one is interested in rewriting history books to include Black heroes, and so it is kind of left up to us to create our own depiction of Black people, our own depiction of Black history. The movies don't get the funding for them like they should. They don't get the accolades for them like they should when they hit the box office.
That's true.
Even our own Black people don't recognize the significance of Black history because they don't even attend those Black movies to help make them popular.
Right. They only do the exploitation movies.
Right. So, I mean, you put Boys in the Hood up against Red Tails and look at what happened. Red Tails lost. They still watch Boys in the Hood. If you brought that back out the same way, you don't even remaster it. Just put it back out with the popcorn on the screen, and I guarantee you those theaters will fill up.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't fill up for Red Tails.
But I think that that's a problem in the Black community because, as well, as much as it is the fault of the teachers and the people that's trying to keep it under and people that's not writing it in the whole way, it's also our fault too because why don't we want to know our history? Why aren't we delving into it? Why aren't we teaching our children? I do that to me and my son. We talk about Black history all the time. I make sure he knows things. I'll just give him a question. Who's Thurgood Marshall? He'll be like, the guy who helped do something. What did he do? It's something very specific. He was the guy who helped stop segregation in Brown versus the Board of Education. You have to know that. You have to know the deal, the dates. You have to know the time. You have to know that it wasn't that long ago. That was just in 1954 or something like that. 1953, 1954, something on that line. But it wasn't that long ago. You know what I'm saying? And I think that if we don't press it, if we don't put it in our children, if we don't keep it alive as Black people, it will die anyway.
Oh, I agree. I don't want it to be a misconception of what we're saying here. I think we're pretty much all in agreement.
Yeah.
I think that's the way, what I was saying is I think the way it should be.
Yeah.
But we know that the reality of it is that it may never be that way. And so I agree with you. And it was something that I talked about on the last podcast is with my own kids, I had to instill in them Black history.
Yep.
And to let them see the parts that they're not going to teach them in school. And to let them understand, who they are and the importance of who they are and why it's good to be a Black person and why it's not shameful and they don't have to run from who they are or be ashamed of it because even the past was not our fault. And it's things like that. I mean, I just think that it's important to start early with kids and then you'll get them interested in learning who we are and what we're all about instead of, it's I think that nowadays people are just conforming to the societal norms of life.
Yep.
And I think that, they put out a Boys in the Hood because a lot more people can identify with the hardships of the ghetto.
Yep.
And there's action and that kind of thing. It's also extremely difficult to get funding, or producers don't want to put out feel-good movies about Black people. They also don't want to talk about Black history all around the year because it shows how wicked and demonic that their forefathers were, and they don't want to keep hearing about it and read about it, and so they just become dismissive and say, "Well, that was then, and it don't have anything to do with me now." Whatever. But that's.
I also think there's more to it than them telling their side of the story when they tell Black history, and I think that a lot of the reasons that we don't get the Black history told the way that it should be told in its entirety and in its inclusion is that the more we know about ourselves, the more we know about who we are, the struggles that we have overcome, the abilities that we have that are innate to us, the more constructive we'll be in this society, which is a threat.
Yep.
And so in order to keep that threat down, it's like, look, let's just forget about those days.
Exactly.
Let's just start all over again. Let's just act like those people never existed. Those
Yep.
heroes never wrote to, wherever written in history books. Let's just start from the beginning of 2017 and say, okay, let's give Donald Trump a chance, and let's give these billionaires a chance to run this nation. And if
Into
you
the
end up
ground.
being slaves again, then we'll write you in next time.
No.
And that's just,
And-
that's really the way it is.
And that's really the way they're trying to make it.
The scary part about it is that when history is not confronted, and it typically repeats itself, right?
Yes.
So when we don't understand where we went wrong, we don't understand how we ended up where we are, then the likelihood is that we'll be here again.
Right.
Wow, and that is sad, and that's why we're, to an extent, it's like, where is the accountability with the teachers and teaching it right? How can you just justifiably teach it the way you want to teach it?
Esther, can it really be a teacher's fault? I mean, you talking about a 25, 28-year-old suburban white teacher who graduated from the University of Michigan. She didn't have any Black history courses to focus on.
Yeah.
That's
And not only that is none of those things are on a statewide test.
Wow.
And they are trained to deliver education based on passing a test. And if you can pass the benchmarks, then you can pass to the next level. Those Black history questions are never on those benchmarks.
Right, because it's not important enough.
And I also remember when we first moved out here, my kids were going to school out here, in the suburbs, that a lot of these classes were ill prepared to deal with Black people.
Yes.
They had not,
That's true.
they were not used to seeing Black people, especially as students. You see it even in the workplace where you start to break the management barriers, and you see the difficulty, and they don't know how to talk to you, they don't know how to treat you, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, they really struggle with that.
Yeah, I do. But I will go back to one of the initial questions that you asked, and is Black History working? The Black History Month, is it really working? But I think the evidence is overwhelmingly showing that it is not.
I agree.
And I think that, I think what you were saying, and I agree with you, is that we have to go past that part. We have to go past the teachers teaching our kids who have no understanding, no ability to relate to them.
Right.
They have no ability to understand, these other kids who may bully them because out of pure ignorance. And that's where we have to come in. We have to come in and take over and educate our own kids, educate ourselves, and to showing them to have Black pride and to be proud of who they are, and to be better and to rise up and to overcome adversity.
I agree with you. I think another issue with that is that, the younger the parents get, the less they understand about their own history.
Yeah.
So we're speaking from a 45-year-old man's perspective,
Right.
Sure.
that was taught Black history by our mother, who was a black preacher, our father, who was very vocal about Black rights, he was an advocate for Black power. I mean, we come from a family history of Black activists,
That's
and
true.
people that have promoted and pushed for Black equality, and not just equality, but Blacks, upper mobility. And
That's right.
I was about to say Black supremacy. Wouldn't that be nice? But my point is that, as the generations become younger and younger, and I'll give you a prime example, and I don't want to just blame it on white teachers either, because there are some Black teachers that don't understand what I'm about to say. As our generations get younger and younger that are teaching our children, they are losing touch with what that history looks like, what it felt like, and how it was portrayed in the real life. I had a teacher tell my son that segregation was not that bad. Right? So he wrote this book report. I helped him with it. And of course, I'm coming from a perspective of what I know, because not that I was born and was walking around. I never got kicked out and had to use a whites only sink or Black only sink or nothing like that. But it wasn't long after that those things that I was born, that those things that just kind of got done away with.
Right.
So I was still coming from a perspective where I understood how segregation affected us, right?
Right.
I live in a workplace where segregation still exists. I work in one of the largest healthcare companies in the nation, and it is still segregated. I am one of only 3 managers at my level or above.
Yeah.
There's only 3 other people in my color range in an organization that employs over 100,000 people. So to tell 12-year-old or 13-year-old that segregation was not all that bad. How do you even know segregation wasn't all that bad? First, you weren't there.
Right.
2, you didn't read a book about it. Apparently, you haven't seen a film or a video that actually showed true segregation at work.
Right.
You don't understand the laws that are still being held back, are still being used to hold black people back from moving forward in life.
Right.
And can we blame them? I mean, because honestly, the most that I've learned about being black, I learned it from my mom, from being in the kitchen, from sitting under her foot at the bed. She sat and talked to us. She helped us understand how things work. She used every opportunity. If we were watching a video and we were watching movies at home and something would happen on TV, she'd pause the video and say, now see, let me help you understand why this is why it is.
That's true.
This happened because of this, and such and such and such. And if they hadn't done this, then that person would have done that, you know. And she would take every opportunity as a teaching moment.
Yes.
To help us understand who we were, why we existed, and what our calling was in life.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true.
You know, I do think that you said, is it their fault? And so, to a degree, you can always excuse it away and say, well, no, it's their upbringing, and they should have been taught better. And that's true. But these people are grown now. When are you going to take responsibility? When are you going to educate yourself? The information is out there. It's so funny. I was talking to this guy, and he was trying to convince me that black people weren't in America before Columbus. And I said, come on, man, listen, it's out there. Research it. He said, well, give me the references. I said, it's not my job to give you the references. It's not my job to educate you on this subject. If you just Google it. I mean, people don't even want to have to go to
you got to care enough to want to know.
You have to care. You can just Google Africans in America before Columbus. Guess what? It'll be several articles coming up to show you, yes, proof that Africans and black people were already here. You know what I'm saying? You have to want to know. You have to want to educate yourself. You have to want to get it. You get what I'm saying? Absolutely. You can say, well, my mom never taught me, and so now I'm just an idiot. No. Read.
Right.
Research. Investigate. You can change it. So Esther, I hear what you're saying, and I wonder if people understand, and I think, so let me just help you say it this way. I research things that are of interest to me because they benefit me in some way or another, right?
Okay.
When I want to create something delicious to cook, I start researching recipes.
Right.
I don't research recipes if I'm not interested in cooking. Right. I'm not a botanist, so I don't look up how to grow a garden. I could care less.
Right.
And so I guess my point is,
guys.
If we lost the attention that Black History Month gets, this little 28 days in February, what would drive that interest for our children? And for not just our children, but for their parents and people like that.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think Black History Month is important. That's why I said I'm on the fence with it. Because I do think it's important, because I know that if we don't have it, it's going to disappear. You know, At the same time, my problem with it is that it's still not taught the way that it should be taught. It's still not put out there to empower black people like it's meant to do. It's supposed to be a celebration of Black history, of all the people who came up with different things and who found this and who did that and who helped this country. And it's supposed to be that. But then it gets turned into a KKK video. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why is it getting turned into something wicked and ugly and that's not going to uplift us at all?
But I think the thing also is that you talked about blame and placing blame with certain people, and sure, I mean, you can do that, and then after you
have placed blame to go around,
but my point is that after you place blame, then you still stuck with what do you do at this point?
Right.
And I think one of the things we talked about, or you talked about earlier, is the advantage that we still have is that whether white people are purposely trying to keep black people down or whatever, we all have a father that we can talk to.
That's right.
That will be able to even the scales and balance out our lives. And the thing is that when you bring your kids, and I always have to bring it back to the spiritual side, when you can bring your children back to Jesus and let them understand who he is and what he's about. And when you get them interested in their spiritual life, it opens up so many doors and avenues for us.
Yeah.
That's why we able to do things like break barriers. And you know, you talked about your job being one of the first managers. I had 2 jobs where I was the first manager. I worked for a global company with manufacturing and corporate activities on every continent, and I'm still the only black manager that works in my company, and have been for the last 20 years. There was a couple of others, but they've fallen off or whatever. But the point is that I continue to prosper. Our people continue to prosper because we put God first.
Sure.
God will always make a way when you worship him first.
Yep.
When you put him first. And it makes it that much easier to talk about black pride and having confidence in yourself when I can first tell them about Jesus and his sacrifice and how God loves us and he made us all in his image, and it was man that decided to do what they
Separate.
did. But it's but my Father is my creator. He's responsible for the steps that I take, and it doesn't matter who is against me as long as I have him for me. It doesn't really matter.
Right,
and if I can instill that in my children, and have them instill that in their children, we can start to bring about a new race, a new generation of kids who really will have golden and wonderful and bright futures.
I believe that, and I know it because that's the life that we've lived.
That's true.
That's how we were raised. I think that what comes along with teaching children and teaching your family about Jesus Christ is that it helps you to understand what your self-worth is.
Yes.
It helps you to understand
Agreed.
that you were so precious and so loved that this wonderful creator came down from heaven and then died for you.
Yes.
And when I think about that, it's nothing that a history book can't tell me about me.
Exactly.
That I need to know. The only history book I really need is the Holy Bible.
Yeah.
Because that will help me to understand that somebody thought I was worthy enough that they
Yes.
would come down and actually give their life for me.
Right.
Yes.
And it's nothing that you can compare to with that.
Amen.
Because people will try to hide the truth from you.
Yep.
They'll try to, propaganda, give you propaganda books that only give you slight bits of your history.
Yes.
And there's some things that you can control and some things that you can't. But if you got God, Jesus on your side,
That's true.
he makes up for a multitude of sins.
That's true.
So I think what we're boiling down to is what we boil down to almost every episode.
Right.
Which is,
It's all right.
Jesus is the answer, right?
He
Jesus
is.
is the
All
And
right.
you need to start bringing your children and your people to church. And if you don't understand the content of what we're talking about here, this is a perfect opportunity for you to come and bring your family to church so you can hear some of this conversation and let it actually touch and reach your soul, reach the soul of your children. And it's best to get them while they're young.
Yes.
It's very hard and difficult to get them after they've been set in their ways
Oh, yeah.
and
Yep.
influenced by the world so hard.
Yep.
And the power of prayer
Yes.
Yes.
should never be
Underestimated.
Underestimated.
Yep.
Thank you. It should never be underestimated. We should be praying. We should be praying every day for our people, praying for our nation, praying for our leaders,
Yes.
praying for our everything to work in God, the way God had intended for it to do. Because man has his plan and his agenda, and God can override it all.
Ain't that the
Exactly.
truth? I woke up the day after the election. I didn't watch the election. I figured I would get me a good night's sleep. I took a sleeping pill. I went
Right.
to sleep about 7:30, 8 o'clock that night, and I figured I'm gonna get me a good night's sleep because tomorrow I'm gonna be praising God, for the outcome.
Right.
And when I woke up, I grabbed my phone, I took it to the restroom with me, and I popped it open, and I'm looking, and I'm like, what is this? How did this happen?
Right.
Because this is not the outcome that I expected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at that moment, the Lord spoke and told me, he said, they'll pray now, won't they?
Mm.
And ever since that day, the one thing that we have in common as a nation is that everybody is
It's
afraid,
praying.
and and everybody is praying. So my
Wow.
point is, I don't want to live in a world where we get his attention because horrible things happen, and so now we have to get on our knees and start focusing praying when we could have been praying all
along. Yes.
We could have been asking him for the right outcome, for his
That's right.
will to be done,
Yes.
and asking him to release that in earth.
Mm-hmm. I agree with
And
that.
this is another situation where we talk about Black History Month, whether it's good or not for 28 days, whether it should be all year round, how we get into history books. To be honest with you, I don't have the answer on how we get this in history books. I don't think I have the necessary connections to, to put it in a McGraw-Hill book for the 8th graders to get. But I do think that it is important for us to start exploring this at home with our children. Yeah. Start educating ourselves on Black history. Start finding out what we can about who we are as a people, who we are in God's eyes, and how lucky we are to still be here and be alive. And what wonderful thing it is to be Black people. I think that's really where it starts.
Absolutely.
If you can start Black History Month at home, I think we'll go a long way in helping our children reach the next generation.
Amen.
Hey, we want to thank you all for coming out. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. We kind of went a little long today because it was such a touching conversation.
Yeah.
But you can always find us at ehogministries.com or at 8401 Puritan, Detroit, Michigan. We want to see your face. Please come visit us. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can always find us. And God bless you. Take care.